attacks in northern Iraq, American forces now under assault all over the Mideast. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all backed by Iran, and all picking up the pace of their attacks since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. What are the U.S. options for responding to these threats? I want to start with you, Congressman. You know, a lot of us here in the States, backers of Israel, want a more robust response against these Iranian proxies. What's the danger? What are the pros and cons?
Well, the danger is that you get drawn in even more. You have to use even more and more resources. I thought that the administration's response today was appropriate. They want us to become more engaged. They want us to use more and more resources. And the problems that we have across the rest of the Middle East, as well as, frankly, what we're going to have to commit to in the Ukraine here. You know, we are being tested as a country, and, you know, let's leave aside some of the critiques I might have of the Biden administration and some of their past actions. They have to be extremely cautious in overstepping and committing too much.
Because wasn't that the goal of Hamas and its Iranian backers to begin with, was to drive a wedge between Israel, the United States, Saudi Arabia, as they move closer to a peace deal, to try to start a wider regional conflict.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And as Israel and Saudi were drawing closer to that, boom, October 7th happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. I think the Congressman's right. This is a tightrope, hard to figure out, very difficult. I wouldn't want to be the one responsible for making these decisions right now. Every move has a counter move, and every move could lead to a broader conflict that nobody at this country wants. And unfortunately, our enemies in the Middle East might want.
100%. So what does the Biden administration do, though? I mean, if I'm the Iranian militant groups, right? If I start firing more rockets, more drones, right? Then we're going to meet them tit for tat, as opposed to eliminating them. Doesn't that inherently draw us in to a larger scale? This sounds like war, but maybe not on a technical basis. But doesn't that inherently draw us in?
It does, but that's what they're trying to do. And what else can we do? I mean, that's my
point.
Drones that have happened just today in the last 10 hours that Kelly spoke about. This has been happening for 2 weeks, and I mean, fortunately, we keep
longer than that.
We talked about people who are critical of the administration's response. They see it as too weak-kneed. Among them, big surprise, Tom Cotton, the Republican of Arkansas. He says, how many Americans must be injured and sooner or later killed before Joe Biden gets serious about Iran's attacks? And the Wall Street Journal, he retweeted a Wall Street Journal article about the U.S. said it struck 3 drone facilities. And so the question is, you know, if the U.S. were to hit Iranian targets, they could take out these Houthi sites with a volley of tomahawks. I mean, I'm no military expert, but the U.S. has the capability of not, and so there is clearly this measured response on the part of the U.S.
Well, I think that's a PR effort, too. I mean, obviously, they put out today that they did these strikes, but I mean, they can't completely they can't completely destroy them right now, if I can speak, because I think that look at what's happening in regards to the public response to even in Israel right now. I mean, if they completely attack them, I think that it's going to be a huge PR pressure.
There's a huge problem for both Israel and the United States right now in the response to October 7th, and the response to everything going on since October 7th. And if we appear to be using too heavy of a hand, the United States that is, we're going to have no credibility to resolve this conflict in the Middle East. We won't be able to push Israel into a more targeted solution, which the Biden administration is doing right now, which, by the way, at the beginning of this conflict, when I spoke to a lot of Israeli experts that I know, they thought that was the way it was going to be, that this would be over in a couple of weeks. And it's not, unfortunately. And there are some politics at play internally in Israel that are playing into that as well. So the Biden administration has got to be very careful and take a very tactical and measured response to everything that's coming our way, or we lose all credibility in the region.
And also, there's not like some shot clock where we have to do an offensive counterattack by a certain period of time. So, like, something may still yet ensue. But how about last week when we met with China and they said, well, we're going to take back Taiwan. So, like, there are so many variables to how the U.S. has to respond.
A lot of pieces on the board.
Thank you for watching, and make sure you go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.